We got a problem.
For an organization that hasn't made the playoffs since 2016 and just 2 years ago lost their franchise player in Kemba Walker in free agency, there really wasn't anything to be excited about for the Charlotte Hornets. They had no star, they weren't good enough to make the playoffs, but average enough not to be in a great position to get a top 3 pick in the draft. They were basically just stuck as a franchise. But this past season was definitely a breath of fresh air for the organization and for its fans. This is a team that caught the attention of fans around the league by their exciting style of play. The Hornets were everyone's NBA League Pass team. Not only were they exciting to watch, but they actually competed on a night-to-night basis and was in a great position to make the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. On one hand, the Hornets largely exceeded expectations by making the play-in tournament. On the other hand, the season ended on a bad note, and that left a bad taste in their mouths. They had 6 consecutive losses, which included a blowout loss to the Indiana Pacers in the play-in game, where they never led. Being so close to their goal of making the playoffs can give a team a lot of motivation going into next season. The Hornets were the feel-good story of the season leading up to the All-Star break. This team was able to bond together easily by being underdogs. Nobody expected this squad to be a good team going into the season. Being lucky in the draft is something that helped the Hornets get their franchise player in the 2020 NBA draft. Like I said earlier, they were not quite good enough to make the playoffs and not bad enough to be in a position to get a top 3 pick. But they got lucky in the draft lottery and moved all the way up to the 3rd pick, where they selected the eventual Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball. That breath of fresh air was larger because of this guy. Not many could have predicted that LaMelo would have such a huge impact in his rookie year. He was not only productive on the court, but he brought a positive vibe to the team. LaMelo was a highlight machine throughout the whole season. He's an incredible passer, and his playmaking skills brought out the best of every teammate on the court. He's the type of talent where his teammates will run a little harder and cut more often because of his willingness to give the ball up. Being able to not only create for others, but also create for himself. His impact was very evident when he went down with a wrist injury. This team started to take a nosedive, and they went from the 5th seed and finished in 10th place. If LaMelo was healthy, this team could have secured a playoff spot. His impact greatly improved the Hornets, and his absence proved that. The biggest downfall for the Hornets season was all the games the players missed due to injuries and COVID-19 protocols. Gordon Hayward missed 28 games, LaMelo missed 21, Devontae Graham missed 17, Malik Monk missed 30, and Cody Zeller missed 24. Those guys combined averaged over 70 points per game. Those missed games came at key moments during the season too. It's becoming expected for Hayward to miss a handful of games every season, it seems like. Ever since he suffered that devastating ankle injury in 2017, he has missed a large chunk of games almost every year since. Last season was no different. When Gordon Hayward was on the court, he lived up to his huge contract for the most part. He actually had a strong case to be an all-star by the midpoint of the season. The best ability is availability, and Hayward was not available for the Hornets when they needed him the most. It's something he can't control, but it's still a knock. Hayward suffered a right foot sprain against the Indiana Pacers on April 2nd. And he was never able to come back and ended up missing the rest of the season. The Hornets decided not to keep their former 2nd-round pick in Devontae Graham and traded him to the New Orleans Pelicans for a lottery-protected 1st-round pick. The team probably didn't want to commit long-term to both Terry Rozier and Graham, so they ultimately chose Rozier over Graham and rewarded him with a hefty extension this offseason. The Hornets agreed to a 4-year, $97 million contract extension with guard Terry Rozier, which will keep him in Charlotte through the 25-26 season. He showed what kind of explosive scorer he could be last season. In his 2nd season with the Hornets, Rozier averaged a career-high 20 points per game to go along with 4 assists. Cody Zeller never could live up to the hype ever since he was drafted 4th overall in 2013. He was supposed to be that reliable 20 and 10 guy that solidified that position for the next 10 years. So it wasn't that much of a surprise when the Hornets decided not to re-sign him this offseason. It would have been crazy to even consider it. The Hornets will replace him with Mason Plumlee as they traded for him on draft night, and the Pistons added a valuable 2nd round pick to the Hornets to take Plumlee off their hands. I believe Plumlee is an upgrade over Zeller, mostly because of his rebounding ability and his athleticism. That valuable 2nd round pick ended up being JT Thor, who is a very talented big man out of Auburn. As a matter of fact, the Hornets had one of the best drafts in the league. They took a top 10 talent in James Bouknight at number 11. They traded back into the 1st round and took Kai Jones and capped it off with Thor at 37. This draft should give the Hornets fans even more hope that this team can finally break through and become one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference in the future. With Malik Monk leaving and signing with the Lakers, Bouknight could be thrust into the rotation in his rookie year. Monk has always been a talented scorer, but early on he could never be consistent, and last season when he actually played up to his potential, he was held back by injuries that forced him to miss a lot of games. Bouknight almost has the same skill set and athleticism as Monk, very shifty off the dribble, and can get to any spot on the court and get buckets. If he's able to provide quality minutes early in the season, head coach James Borrego could keep him in the rotation, and that could lead to Bouknight gaining more confidence, which could lead to him flourishing early in his career. With the Hornets also not re-signing Bismack Biyombo, they will most likely have a young big man as the backup to Mason Plumlee. It could be one of the 2nd round picks from last year in Vernon Carey Jr. or Nick Richards, or it could be Kai Jones. Now the plan is to eventually have Kai Jones take over that position at some point, but Borrego may feel he's not physically ready to play that position just yet. Miles Bridges had his best season so far during the 2021 season. Bridges has developed into one of the most important pieces of the Hornets' future. He had a career high in rebounds and assists, but the most impressive part of his 3rd season was his efficiency. Bridges almost had a 40-50-90 season, which would have been incredible. He shot 87% from the free throw line. Now, Miles Bridges was part of the 2018 draft class, and 1st round picks from that class is eligible for a rookie extension this summer. The Hornets could still extend him before the season starts, but if they can't come to an agreement, he will be a restricted free agent in the summer of 2022. There's always a chance that another team could make a big offer to Bridges that might be too much for the Hornets to match. Not extending him before the season is a risk. Besides the rookie class, the Hornets also brought in 2 notable free agents in Ish Smith and Kelly Ubray. Ubray could never really get comfortable with the Warriors like he did in his last season with the Phoenix Suns. If you take out the dunks, Ubray missed his first 31 shots in the Golden State Warriors uniform. And if you narrow it down to 3-pointers, he missed his first 17 3-point attempts of the season. Although he did eventually improve, he was still unreliable when the Warriors needed him. He was consistently inconsistent. He made it easy for Golden State to move on from him because keeping him would have made their payroll even more higher. This was a good gamble for the Hornets to make. Hayward has a long history of injuries, and this could be Ubray's chance to prove to the rest of the league that last year's performance was a fluke. The Hornets are once again in a good position to compete for the playoffs, just like they did last season. But the only difference is they won't sneak up on a lot of teams this season like they did last season. Most teams won't take the Hornets lightly and will play with great effort. LaMelo Ball will continue to improve, and his unselfish style of play and colorful personality will bring relevance to the Hornets franchise, and they will once again be one of the most exciting teams in the league. But the Eastern Conference has gotten so much better as a whole, and I don't look at the Hornets as the automatic shoe-in for the playoffs. The improvement will be there, but I believe they will fall short just like last season. I have the Hornets finishing in 10th place again with a 36-46 record. The Eastern Conference will be brutal, and some say it will be better from top to bottom than the West. Getting off to a good start will be important for a lot of teams in the East. The Hornets have the necessary building blocks for the future, but they won't have quite enough to break into the playoffs just yet. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do it right now for future NBA content.